Good evening from Canada. This is Sadia, and I am back with another masterclass with friends. I'm executive of RUNWAY program. So before we go on to the event today, I would like to start with talking about RUNWAY. So RUNWAY is a 6-month-long intensive where we invite growth stage businesses to find out ways of how they can expand to international market. So it's a unique accelerator in Vietnam for businesses who want to expand to foreign market through the experts, mentors, and global network of our partners. So if you are someone who is a growth stage business, have 3 to 5 years of exposure in a local market with a product market fit and significant market share, and if you have an operational team and financial capacity to expand, then you can definitely participate in the program. The benefits of participating in our program is that we will help you connect with foreign markets, and we can connect you with Vietnamese trade promotion agencies, investors, incubation accelerators, and our partner network to get access to the market. If you participate in this program, the first 6 months is going to be intensive training with a lot of market research, and you'll walk out with a go-to-market strategy plan. And then we will help you with mentoring and coaching with our experts and CEOs of different fields, and eventually we'd host an investment round where we can help you also raise investment so that you can successfully penetrate the global market. Other than all of that, our supportive package also includes background assistance from Google and Amazon Web Services. We help you with marketing, PR, and communication in the new market. Mainly, we would help you with a lot of market research to find your new customers in the international market. We help with intellectual property management, and then also help you with cost support package for co-working space as you expand to the new market. And if you need language support skill, for example, if you want to expand to Chinese market, or if you want to expand to US or Canada region, and if you need English support, we also have those kind of support packages. Funding up to $10,000 right in the pitching round. So how do you apply for this program? So in this program, the first thing right now we are doing is now we have an open call for application, and we are accepting people to apply for the program. So at the end of this, I would share a link, or in our Facebook page, you can see that in the fan page, there is a link to register to the program. So you can start with the registration. Once you register, you will have to, we'll review, and then we will ask you to submit an application. So in a virtual interview, we will ask you some questions about your registration, about the business, and then we would give you an application form. And then once you submit your application form, then we're going to review your documents, and eventually we'll have a final interview, and then we'll admit you to the program. So our program is sponsored and is by 90% by our partners. However, you will have to pay a small participation fee, which is obviously refundable if you do not get to penetrate to the international market. So we, Runway, are part of the Foreign Trade University Incubation and Innovation Space. It's called FIS. And at FIS, we have the network of partners, incubators, accelerators, and other different stakeholders, which makes us perfect for helping businesses get the knowledge and skills and attitude that they need in order to kind of expand to the international markets. And our partners also gain a lot of knowledge and skills by interacting with these businesses and with our other partners. And so together we create an ecosystem, and together we commit with each other to make sure that we help your business scale up to global market. So if you are interested, you can always contact us, right? So you can either send us an email and ask us questions about how to apply to the program. You can go to our website, which is runway.fis.edu.vn, and you can directly hit the apply button and apply and register for the program. You can also check out our fan page, and our fan page has a lot of information about the program. We also have Vietnamese co-founders, founders coming and speaking about their like ways of scaling up to the businesses. And so you can also check out those previous webinars and find out more information about how can you successfully penetrate the international market with us. So with that, now I think we can move on to our actual session that we are here for. Because today we have a very interesting session coming up for you, which is not only helpful for you to scale up to global market, but also if you want to scale up locally as well, you can also do that. So for those who have joined us here today for the first time, this is the second masterclass of a two-part masterclass series with our main guest, Mr. Ippel, co-founder and CEO of Spring Activator Canada. For the first-time listeners, Keith has over 20 years of leadership experience in technology and impact businesses, and has driven the growth of many companies and raised more than 30 million in investment and venture capital. With Keith, today we also have Nguyen Hoang Anh, Cassie Nguyen, who's the CEO, Chief Operating Officer at Abivin. She graduated from Southeastern Finland University of Applied Sciences, majoring in International Business Administration. Before working at Abivin, Ms. Hoang Anh had experience in business development for a B2B software company based in Silicon Valley, as well as having worked and experience in more than 30 countries. So hello, Keith and Cassie, welcome to this masterclass, and thank you for making time for us. We're really delighted to have you with us today.
Thanks a lot for having us. Yeah, it's great to be here again.
Yeah. So now I would open the floor for both Kathy and Keith to kind of kick off this session today.
Yeah, thank you. Cassie, it's fantastic to see you again. For everyone that's on this session, Cassie and I first met when Cassie was going through an accelerator program with Weiss, and so that's now a couple of years ago. Hard to believe. And we've been in touch since, and it's been amazing to watch the progress and momentum that you have been creating at Abivine. So Cassie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks everyone, and it's great to be here again and talking to Kit and Sadia today.
Yeah, cool. So everyone, today what we want to do is we want to spend some time talking about expansion and growth, and in particular what we want to do is spend a little bit of time talking about expansion and exporting. And so we're going to spend a bit of time on that, and what does it mean to grow a business so that you actually start to sell outside of Vietnam? What are some of the opportunities and what are some of the challenges that exist there? And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to spend some time in that topic and in that conversation. And so maybe as a starting point, what I'd love to do, Cassie, is just have you share with everybody what it is that you do. So what is Abivine? And maybe give us a bit of a status update, like where you're currently selling your product in the marketplace, and then we'll go from there.
Great. So hi everyone, I'm Cassie, COO and co-founder at Abivine. Abivine is building an AI-powered logistic optimization platform to help enterprises to save logistic costs, automate all the manual processes, as well as enhance the end-to-end supply chain visibility. So right now we work with clients in 5 main sectors of the supply chain, from the port to manufacturers, distributors, logistics service providers to retailers. And right now we have clients in 4 countries, including majority are in Vietnam and also in Singapore, Indonesia, and Myanmar. So that's where we are today.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Congratulations on that growth. Yeah, really
thanks,
great. And some of you may also know Cassie and the Abivine company, because Cassie actually in the past has won a few different pitch competitions in Vietnam, and has done an incredible job of telling the story of Abivine. So I'm looking forward to sharing that more as we go through. And so if it's okay with everyone, what I'm going to do is, like we did last time, I'm going to share my screen. And in the screen, just to let everybody know, this is designed to be a guide. So the goal of this, the slides, is really just to trigger conversation with myself and Cassie. I know Sadia has some questions for us, but we're hoping that you bring your questions as well. So really looking forward to that. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen. Great. And so I'm going to very quickly give you guys some context. So Spring exists to change the world through entrepreneurship. We have worked in more than 40 communities around the world. We have supported more than 100 ecosystem partners, so incubators and accelerators. We have trained more than 800 entrepreneurs. We've supported more than 500 companies. So, our passion is supporting organizations, and we're really excited about the work that FIS is doing. I think the RUNWAY program is like a pioneering program in Vietnam, and I think has tremendous potential to really impact the growth of organizations. So excited to be here. Some of the cities and some of the communities that we've worked in. So definitely, if you guys have questions about the North American market or the European market, elsewhere, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. But let's talk about expansion. And so what I want to do is start with some of the basics. And so the important part is when you're thinking about expanding and growing your business. So now, like before we get into, say, country expansion, right? And so Cassie's been through this before. When you're ready for growth, often the first thing you have to do is just take a look at where the company exists right now. Like, what processes are in place? Are you ready for growth? You need to think about and be honest about the team. Like, where are the strengths? Where are the gaps? When you're ready for growth, you have to set clear goals and KPIs. You also, of course, have to ask the question, how will you fund it? And so, as you go through this list, we then talk about talent. And this is, of course, especially when we talk about things like access to talent. And then we think about some other context, whether it's locally or in other countries. And the important part as a leader is to stay involved. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kick things off, Cassie, with a question for you, which is, as you have started to grow the business now in 4 countries, how have you and your co-founder, how have you guys stayed involved in the business to know like what is working and what's not working and how to fix that?
Okay, so the question is how to know that what is working and what is not working. So basically, as a software company, we are very data driven from day one. And also like, as we are growing the business, we measure everything for the sales and marketing. We have all the tools in place, have the CRM set up, and also measuring every single sales step that we have and trying to see like what goes wrong in the sales pipeline or what goes wrong in the sales cycle. So basically, we try to measure every single step in our process, especially for our company. We are a company who are doing enterprise software. So you can imagine the enterprise sales are very long cycle. So we try to lay out all the steps in the process, and also like look at every single step where are the point that we might see that the problem is arising and trying to fix it. So that's how we have been doing in very short, but then like we can go very details. That is very long story.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that's a great starting point, because what I like about what you just described is that you clearly have sales goals, and then you're measuring the sales funnel to see if you're actually being successful, because the more efficient your sales process, the better equipped you are for growth. And so I personally think that's such a great starting point, because it is important to realize that, of course, without revenue, there is no growth. And so we really need to make sure that we're very focused on that. In that process of sales growth, have you and your co-founder, have the two of you, do you control sales, or have you hired salespeople, and what has that experience been like?
Yeah, so in the first or second year, I was doing most of the work in sales, and then we start to have like 1 or 2 more salespeople, and starting out rolling a team of let's say 5 and 10, and now we have around more than 20 people in 2 different offices. So it's growing from day one that actually both me and my co-founder were doing the sales. And then eventually we can finalize a playbook, the sales playbook for the team, and then start coaching, training, and also sharing to the other person, and basically help them to go through every single step in the sales process, and then repeating that process to the other person. And also scale up the team by the more senior person teaching more junior one, and trying to sharing the knowledge and experience among the sales team as we go further.
Yeah, so such a good example of building some process in, so that when you hire talent, that you're ready to take them on. And that sales playbook, I think, is a best practice that everybody on this session should take away with their company. Every time that you're working on sales, you have an opportunity to document what is working, what's not, building out that funnel, building out the steps, even going so far, Cassie, you probably do this, like what is a good email template to follow up after a call? How do you handle certain objections, right? And so I think those are really, really great starting points. And what I want to encourage everyone on this particular call is expansion is not rocket science, right? It's not, there's no magic in it. It's following a process. And so here we kind of have 7 steps to begin with. And just as a reminder to everyone, this presentation can be made available through the FIS team after this. So if you do want to refer back to it, you definitely can. And it is an example of the kind of content and the kind of support you would get through the Runway program. So just a quick note on that presentation. Sadia, do you have a question now for Cassie, or do you want me to continue?
Actually, I had a question which was kind of kind of to build up on the question that you asked, is that, so you talked about like how you did the things, right? So but my question actually was about challenges. So when you were trying to scale up, like what were some of the biggest challenges that you were facing both locally and internationally? So that was like my question.
Yeah, so the question is about the challenges that we have when we try to scale up internationally. So we do have a lot of challenges, especially from early days. However, I see that we are still lucky enough because our product from day one are ready to sell globally, because it's a cloud-based software as a service. So it's easy to scale out to other countries. However, given that there are still a lot of differences in different countries. For instance, like when our first countries that we enter was Myanmar, which is like everyone thinking like if you start out from Vietnam, you probably want to go next to Indonesia or Singapore first. But when we scale out to Myanmar, so the story was like we didn't know the speaking English, but now in Myanmar, people speaking Burmese, and not so many people can speak English. So when we try to contact with the clients or training to the users, it's very difficult. And the users, typically the local people, they prefer to be trained in the local languages. So that language are still a big barrier for us. But we can do that by trying to incorporate the localization in the features and all in the application, that we have the mobile application translated in all local languages like Burmese, Indonesian Bahasa, or Malaysian Bahasa. So however, like even the training step, if we do the training for Vietnamese users, it's already very difficult because it's a new product. And also it's totally changed the way they do the work, change the workflow that they have been doing for 10 years or over 20 years. So it's very difficult for us. And also given the infrastructure in different countries, as a software product, as we go to different countries, so internet infrastructure and also data provider are also very critical for us. So at that time, when we start to enter Myanmar, there wasn't so many internet provider as there are in Vietnam. But nowadays, like in Myanmar, there are more and more internet providers, and they are like they can even have better speed and better connection sometimes as comparing to Vietnam nowadays. But when we were first entering Myanmar, it was a difficult problem because we have to try to find the best provider for our users, even though we are just selling the software over there. So that was some of the infrastructure issues, the localization issues in those countries. Otherwise, I think in Indonesia, we also learned the lessons that the localization is far more important, because Indonesian people, they very how to say, even though they can speak relatively good English in some area, in certain islands people don't speak English, so it's even more difficult for us to go to Indonesia given the languages. However, like the app, the application for the drivers, who the group of users who are not able to speak in English are the one who used our mobile application for drivers. So we try to make the app super easy for them so that they can see, recognize the buttons, and use the app like just in English, and then gradually localize it into Bahasa. So that's the way how we did it. And we realized that if we make our application super simple, and nowadays the adoption rate of the internet and also the application also help us to overcome that challenge, that help us to educate the users to use the mobile application. So it's in our challenges in entering other markets in Southeast Asia.
So I want to touch on something, Cassie, that you just shared, because Sadia, that was such a great question. And you raised something I think so important for entrepreneurs to hear, which is first, every country is different. Every country has its unique, whether it's laws or language or, like Indonesia, how many islands make up Indonesia, right? Like it's such a unique country in that way. But the other thing, and I think this is so critical, is that you said, look, in Indonesia where they don't speak English, if we make the product easy to use and it fulfills a core value, they will use it anyway. And so there's tremendous power. And I want to make sure that everyone on this call hears that, which is your goal is to get to the core of what the need is for the user or the customer. And if you do that in a way that is simple and easy to use, that is universal language anywhere in the world. And one, like a similar but different example is Twitter. When Twitter first launched, the challenge that they actually had was in the ability for the product to be stable. So when there was like a major event in the world and everybody would jump onto Twitter, it would actually crash. But because the value was so strong, people were willing to tolerate the crashes because the value was present. And so Cassie, I think that example you gave is just really, really powerful because it shows the universal appeal of your product. And that's whenever you enter a new country, you're like, how do I communicate my universal appeal? Right. And so really, really, really great example. And just while you were sharing, I wanted to switch my slide over because you were doing a really good job of describing some of the challenges, like what are the demographics? What's the market size? Is it worth my time? My question for you is, when you entered these other countries, how did you look at competition? And how did that make you either like adjust your strategy or stay the same?
Okay, so very good question on the competition if when we entering the new country. So we typically see two types of competitors. The first one is the local vendors from those countries. And the second type are the international big players who typically coming from the West, like the developed countries like the US, European countries. So there are two types of competitors we usually see when we entering a new market. And we, of course, have to look at where they are at the moment. And also, like, given the market we are in at the moment, actually, the competition is something interesting and also helpful for us, as they also, like, we are in the same journey to educate those markets in Southeast Asia, because the adoption rate for logistic optimization software in enterprises here in Southeast Asia are still very low, like less than 10% in all the Southeast Asian countries. So that's a good thing. And we are also looking at how they are doing and what type of market segment they are target. And typically we found the different target segment that we are targeting as compared to their target. And also we learn from the strengths and also improve on the weaknesses we can see from them. So that's how we are looking at when we entering a new market, that those type of competitors are the one that we typically look at. But for the local vendors, for the local vendors, what I realized in Southeast Asia that there are still very, very few local vendors or domestic vendors who can have the capabilities to understand and provide the world-class software services. It's very difficult. And also, given like the success case in Southeast Asia is also another challenges for the global competitors who are coming from the West, because even though they have their technology, but they don't have their local expertise in the logistic area here. That Southeast Asia has the unique strengths that only appear in Southeast Asia. Like here we deliver with motorbikes and small trucks, small vans, but in European countries or in the US, it's very rarely that you can see a motorbike delivery. So it's very unique and different market that I think, the competition landscape is very interesting and different in different area of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic sharing. Thank you for that. So when you were exploring the market and you were talking about competition, how much did you spend time talking to potential customers to see how they might describe the problem differently or how they might describe the solution differently? So how much would you do that kind of homework in advance of entering a market?
So how much is a very difficult question. Okay, I wasn't measuring it, like how much I was doing it.
Yeah.
So it's a good question. Now I have to reflect. But our story is like we're very lucky that we have a couple of multinational companies who are our clients. So after we successfully deploy for them in Vietnam, they introduce us to their counterparts in other countries in Southeast Asia that they realized, and like we talk with them through the whole process, and we are like from the beginning of the day that we think that we build a product for the global market, especially targeting Southeast Asia where we have the core strengths. So when they give us the opportunities to talk to their counterparts in the other country, we did a lot of research on the countries and trying to test out our product online, trying to like just hire a few users or some tester over there to joining and testing our products before actually launching in those countries. And of course, we have to fly over there, trying to talk to our clients, potential clients and users, and also observe all the activities. And also I myself love traveling around. So we travel to those cities to experience and also like talking to the businesses to realize that, okay, so we can see a universal problems here in transportation management that might be applicable across not only Southeast Asian country, but for now I just focus on Southeast Asian. So we start from there and we keep the conversation going on, even though after we flying back to Vietnam and then do some simulation with them. Basically proof with the simulation to show them that the product can actually works in those countries is very important for us. So so I'm not sure how to measure it. Is it like how much we have been doing with?
It's a good question. I think the number does not matter. What you shared, I think two critical pieces that I took away from it. One was that you started at the very beginning thinking about building a global product. That instead of just saying, hey, what do we need in Hanoi or what do we need in Ho Chi Minh, didn't do that. You're just like, how do we create global value? And that really is the basis for any company, I think, that wants to expand globally. And then the second one is that you talked to the customer and you did two things that you described. One is you found test users. And then the second one is you would actually fly there and talk to customers. Now, of course, in today's post-COVID world, we can't fly as easily or anywhere for that matter, but people now are very comfortable getting on Zoom or getting on, Skype or other tools. And so talking to the customers is really important because I think first having the global lens when you build the product, whatever the product or service is, doesn't matter, bricks and mortar, software, you name it, And then the second one is you have to talk to the customer. You have to know what they're thinking, what their needs are, et cetera. So I think that was such a really, really good piece of sharing. And so that kind of, you chatted a little bit about this. You're in a transportation industry. So you talked about the different types of vehicles. Did you run into any regulation challenges or any infrastructure challenges that would slow you down?
Yeah. So regulation and infrastructure,
yeah.
They are the two factors directly impact on the transportation. So very interesting question. The regulation side, we do have some different regulations on this transportation area. However, like it's not how to say directly impact to our business, but it's one of the input into our system that, for instance, like when we enter Indonesian market, there's in regulations for odd and even license plate number for certain days of the month, that only for instance, during the odd days, only odd license plate vehicles are allowed to go to certain areas. So those are the type of regulations that we have to learn and input into our system over the time and through our conversation with the clients. And also that's something we learned through the test, the simulation phase with the clients. So this is one of the example why I mentioned that regulation is one of the input into our system for making the transportation plan and also other logistic optimization plan. And the same case for infrastructure, because the infrastructure directly impact on the speed of movement of the vehicles. So it's directly impact into the input into our system. So that's something we have to adapt to very quickly and learn those differences as we go during the hypercare and deployment phase with the clients. So, and also like the infrastructure, as I mentioned, like not only transportation infrastructure as the input into the system, but also the internet and the data infrastructure in certain countries. So we have to adapt in terms of technology infrastructure and also transportation infrastructure. Yeah. But I would say like it's something that the business can very quickly learn from, because without adaptation to those factors, I don't think the system will be able to work for the users anyway. So yeah, that's something we must do.
Yeah.
I think Keith got disconnected from the call.
Oh, I thought it was me. Okay. Let's wait for him for a while.
Yes. I actually had a question for you, Cassie. Maybe this is the time I can ask that question, right? So, you talked a little bit about, about your customer and like finding these customers, right? But and like the fact is that you also talked about like building a global product from the get-go. My question to you actually is that, how did you know that your product or service has a demand in international market? And how did you actually find your first customer in the new market? So that's like my question.
Sorry, your voice was breaking up. Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes. I said that, so I kind of want to know, because you talked a little bit about like your vision was like building a global product. So I wanted to kind of know, like, how did you know that your product or service has demand in other countries and other markets? And how did you find your first customer?
Okay.
In the new market?
Okay, so two questions. How do I know that we have the demands in other countries? And the second question was, how do I find the first international clients?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we know about the demand? So from the get-go, we build the product. It just happens for us to be in Vietnam, but we do have a vision for a global company that we want to build the product for the whole Southeast Asia. And when we do the market research and searching for the demand, our very first clients, of course, was in Vietnam. However, it's an international companies, and also we look at the problem at a scale of Southeast Asia market, and we do the market research on this area in Southeast Asia, of course, and we realized that there are very many similarity between those Southeast Asian countries, and we dig further on the market research and realized the demand here are very obvious, that it's very huge potential market and mostly untapped. That's why we very confident that it's a good market for us to grow for a long run. And the second question was, how do we get the first clients, international clients? So we did inbound marketing across Southeast Asia. And our first clients was coming in from inbound marketing channel. So yeah, that's originally how we get our first clients. But it's also thanks to our mindset from the day one that we did all the materials online in English, like available to all the target audience across Southeast Asia, not only available in Vietnam. So that's something we are very well aware from the beginning. So that's also helpful for us to get the very first clients outside of Vietnam. Yeah. Hello, Keith.
Hey.
You're back.
Yeah, I ran out of battery, so I managed to plug it in quickly. I didn't lose too much time, thankfully. So.
I was just asking a question to Cassie about her first international customer, and as well as like how did she know about the demand, right? And Keith, I have a follow-up question on the topic that we were discussing, which is like, so we are currently kind of discussing about businesses who already have a global vision, a vision for scale, where they know that they want to build a global product from the get-go. They know where they want to go, basically have a global business, right? What about businesses who don't have that vision right away, right? Because sometimes, like when we start off with an idea, even we sometimes cannot fathom the capacity of our own business idea, right? And then it starts to grow. And so for businesses that did not start off with that global, like the mindset of going global, how can they start? Like, what can they do now in order for them to take their local business into the global market? Like, what do you have for that?
Well, I can give my perspective, and I think Cassie can also contribute as well. I think that it is so common for entrepreneurs to think about, I see this problem in my community or in my market, and then stop the conversation, right? And so the important part always is that when you start a company, for a reason. And so that's what we call our why, right? So start with the why, Simon Sinek, which I'm sure you guys will cover in the program, in the Runway program.
The golden circle,
Yeah, exactly, right? And so start with the why, Simon Sinek, and everybody should check that out if you have not already. But the reason we start there is because when we decide our why, the why can give us a global perspective. And so sometimes our global perspective varies. So for example, Cassie's idea is truly a global idea. Her idea could be implemented anywhere in the world. But for some ideas and some businesses, the starting point is maybe regional, like ASEAN, or maybe it's just Vietnam, or something else. But the important part is that you have to think out to the future. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Then you start to do things like, what is that larger problem, and how does my solution, my product or service need to serve that? So my encouragement always is start with the why, know what your 10-year plan is. Like, where do you want to be out there in 10 years? How big do you want this to be? and then work your way in to where you are today, right? So that would be my perspective. Yeah.
All right. Thank
Great.
you. Cassie, do you have any input on that? Like, because, you know, for those who have not started with the vision for scale to go global, but now they want to come to our program and go global, like, so how can they start?
Yeah, I totally agree with Kit. I think different company and different businesses have different ways to scale up, and there's no one size fits all. That's why I think it's very important for the businesses or entrepreneurs, when they want to expand, it's very important for them to join the network of support like your Runway program, to discover the opportunities first and try to do a lot more research, because researching and learning from others are very important for me so far, and I think everyone can learn something from that. So that's my 2 cents.
Great.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have to think that for the audience that we have, there has to be one question that a number of people are thinking. And so Cassie, the question is, as you look to expand and to go to new countries, how did you approach funding that growth? So did you seek funding from investors? Did you need it? Do you want it? What are your lessons learned there?
Yeah, so funding for expansion globally. So my approach can be very different from what I can see from a few other startups, or at least a few friends of mine who are running startup, who are scaling up globally. So some of them are seeking fundings aggressively and got a very good funding to set up the whole team, very similar in the way they are setting up the team in Vietnam. They set up very similar team in Indonesia, in Thailand or Myanmar to do the work. But my approach, well, for Abivin case, we started first very in a different way, that we scale up with our current clients first. So we get the referrals and also introduction from the current key accounts we have after deployment in Vietnam, and then introduce us to other counterparts. And we don't need to set up the whole incorporated entity or the whole office or sales team in other countries, or at least not for now at the moment, as we try to minimize the cost of setting up the whole new entities in those other countries. And we're starting out and trying to get the client first to actually prove that and seeking the funding to open the whole office and invest heavily to acquire the market, which I think can gain the traction very quickly, but also like need a lot of fundings. As I can imagine, when we calculate the cost for setting up a business in Indonesia and setting up the whole team, very similar for us in Indonesia, the cost can be at least double or even triples, because we have to fly over there, recruit the local people, learning all the regulations and everything. So I would say it's a huge investment that maybe their companies at later stage, as they have more fundings, and also, or either they can accumulate more money from the profit after they get in Vietnam or in the initial market, then they can save for that big investment. Otherwise, in our case, we just try to minimize the setup costs and try to scale up and get the revenue going first, the client first. And of course, the clients are paying us. So those revenue from the other countries, typically they are higher than the revenue from the local market, of course. Then we can fuel the fundings for scaling up, rolling out gradually. So that's my approach at the moment. And of course, probably at later times, as we can accumulate more savings, for instance, for those specific countries, of course, we realize the demand. However, given the COVID situation, of course, for this year, it's also delayed the expansion plan. But I think in at least 1 or 2 years, our approach will not change much at the initial stage as we enter the new market. But it just for the enterprise software market that we are in right now, we need to accumulate more and have a more strong backgrounds before invest heavily in a new market.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's an important reminder, I think, for everyone who's on this session that in order to grow your business and expand, you actually do have a choice, right? You can grow through revenue, you can grow through different types of funding, but you don't only have to go for investors, right? Like there's choice out there. And I think that's really important for people to take away. And so that leads me to a question. And so you've been expanding now for a little while, and 4 countries, amazing. You look back on the last couple of years, and if you could speak to yourself 2 years ago, what would you tell yourself to do? Like what would you suggest that people do or don't do before they start on expansion?
Okay, great questions for reflection again. So what I would tell my 2 years ago self, that I probably put more effort on PR on the customer success at the point that we successfully launched for them the first time in the new country. So we didn't do enough on that we something. Yeah, I think that's something we can leverage if we did more and push more focus on that, so we can get more referrals more quickly early on in those countries. So that would be something helpful from myself if I go back 2 years ago. And also another point that I think we can speed up the process by even fly more to visit the clients. So persuade them to decide more quickly instead of longer process. So when we look at the sales process, they do have more concerns over buying from their local vendors, for instance. So we should be present there more. Even though like we visit the first clients, as I remember, I flew there about 2 or 3 times, but maybe more would be helpful. Yeah, so the actual presence are still very important. For the enterprise deals.
Yeah, I would agree. And one thing I want to say sometimes is that is sometimes when we think about things like flying to another country to meet with customers, sometimes we think about that as an expense. And your mindset there was actually, it's an investment. I'm investing in that relationship to then build my company. So I think that's a great reflection. I think really, really good. Sadia, we're getting close to the end of our time. I'd love to put it over to you, Sadia, for another one of your questions.
Right. I actually have a question. It's a 2-part question for my end, right? So my first question actually is about, because you talked about being physically present in those countries, right? So how do you manage like these multiple offices? How do you stay connected with your business? I think this is also initially a question that Keith kind of brought up. But yeah, and my question is from a team perspective, right? Because in each of the country, with each of the different culture, and then, you have an office in Vietnam. So one of the things is that I wanted to, so the two-part question is that, so when you first tried to scale up, did that impact the business you had in Vietnam? If yes, how so? If no, why so? And how do you manage right now all these different country offices, and how do you kind of stay connected with these different teams with different culture, different mindset, different background? It's a big question.
Yeah, so it's a big question, but I think very interesting. So let me describe by, so right now we have 3 offices. So 1 in Singapore and 2 in Vietnam, in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh cities. And of course, there are some differences in those areas because people are different, location are different. But I think there are not so many difficulties in managing globally or across countries because, for instance, like in April, we have the social distancing or quarantine.
Cassie, you just accidentally went on mute.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Sorry.
Perfect. You're back.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good. Yeah. So I, answering in Sadia question, I think I need to speak again. Yeah. So managing the team in different locations, of course, has different factors that affecting the team collaborations. But I feel like everyone can do it because we are all experienced working from home and also went through the pandemic time in Vietnam. Even though in Vietnam we are all back to normal right now, but I think through the work from home period, you can experience that everyone can actually collaborate online. Especially we use a lot of tools and software instantly. So we have them to manage and get all the works going through the software tools, the software management tools, for instance, like for task management, for sales management, or even for product development. We all have different tools. Like internally, we have a lot of tools, like probably over 30 different softwares internally just to manage our workflows. So the key is to get the information flow going on and everyone get the information precisely. So trying to over communicate instead of under communication is our key strategy so far, that we trying to motivate people to communicate more in order to get the message through to other colleagues. So that's the key thing. Other than that, I think working with a team in Ho Chi Minh City are very similar to working with a team here in Hanoi during their work from home time. So you can see there is no much difference. The key difference is only due to the culture, the local culture in different cities. People might experience different working style or different environment, or even the weather, the climate. We all share to each other, so we celebrate the diversity within the team. For instance, like in the north, we also share with the team in the south that, okay, today we have the big storm, so everyone are like running around and trying to get home earlier, so we might get some delay in response to you. So that's actually something fun to share with the team. And get back to the key point that we value a lot is the over communication, so we can get the clarity in the messages we are trying to deliver. Does that answer your question, Sadia?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to make a quick observation, and then Sadia, over to you to close. That observation is, you're growing a business and you have people in different cities, over communicate, right? Like the bigger the team, the more kind of multi-location you are, the more you communicate. And like you say, big things, small things, right? Big new client wins, changes in the weather. But that's a really important way to build the culture and to and to make sure that everyone knows what's happening, everybody's on the same page. So I thought that was great. So Sadia, over to you to close.
Great. Thank you, Keith. So yeah, we are almost towards the end of our webinar today. I think this was a really interesting masterclass that we had today, because we actually have examples of Vietnamese businesses successfully scaling up to 2 different markets. Because with Chami, we saw how she kind of scaled up her physical products and services to the North America and Canada, whereas with Cassie, we're seeing how she's successfully running business across the Southeast Asia region. So I think it's a really interesting mix that we had in this masterclass with you, Keith. It was really interesting for me about these things, because it also kind of makes me think about how to help build Runway as we go along, because Cassie's business, Avian and Pisu Pisu and the Craft House are stellar examples of what a vision for scale for Vietnamese business could look like in both tech as well as in other sectors as well, right? So I think this is really, really interesting and helpful. So with that, I would like to really thank Keith for making time for us in the last couple of weeks, twice, to kind of come on board and share all of this information with us. And also thank you very much, Cassie, for joining and giving us time today. We know that you were really busy, and yet you made time for the whole 1 hour. I mean, it was really wonderful to have you here today. I'm going to share a feedback form with you guys over email, because we only have a very few participants. And so with that, I would like to close today. Hope to see you guys soon. We have another webinar coming soon in Vietnamese with a Vietnamese guest. And I hope that people will be tuned in for that one as well. So with that, thank you, everyone. Goodbye and good night to Canada, and good morning to Vietnam.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sadia and Cassie.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sadia and Keith.
All right.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Yes, definitely. Goodbye.